All right. So today we'll just take a quick look at, where are we? Here's our schedule. So we're going to start working on Chapter 1 today. Your Chapter 1 assignments aren't due, so today is the 26th, Tuesday. We'll cover Chapter 1 today, Thursday, and then also the following Tuesday. Your intro assignments are due this Thursday by 11:55 p.m., so make sure you are working on those. Chapter 1 assignments aren't going to be due until the following Thursday, okay? So everything that we're covering today, Thursday, and next Tuesday is what is going to be associated with your assignments on the following Thursday, the 4th. So if you look, I've opened up a new page. Let me get this kind of down here. Called our Chapter 1 Daily Agendas. You'll see what I've got here is I had mentioned on last week that I put together agendas for every day. This wasn't open to you yet. All we did was review the introductory stuff. That video, by the way, is up. You should be able to view it if you want to look at it again, if you still have any questions about what we talked about last week. You'll see it usually starts at the bottom and kind of we work our way up. So for today's agenda, the 26th of August, I've got, and these are general guidelines. I like to put this up just to give you guys an idea of what we're going to cover and to remind me of what it is that I need to cover for the day. So I do have an intro video that we're going to watch. And for those of you who come in, again, if you're coming in, and I understand the parking situation is not good. But make sure if you come in late, come up afterwards and let me know your name so that I get you on the attendance. So we're going to start with the little intro video. It's just it's something that shows you what an actual payroll department looks like, and some of the functions that the payroll department does. So just kind of an introductory thing to give you an idea of what that's all about. Then we're going to start looking at the actual material in Chapter 1. So I am going to use the Chapter 1 PowerPoint slides. You have access to this agenda. If you look under that, like I said, it's at the very bottom, the last page in your Chapter 1 module, and it says Chapter 1 Daily Agendas. You just scroll down to the day, and you can access this same stuff as well. So the Chapter 1 PowerPoint slides, which can also be found in the module, in the intro module, all of the PowerPoint slides can be found there, but you can access those there. So we're going to go through some of those PowerPoint slides. Also going to take a look at some of the different articles and websites that I have added to the module that can be helpful to you that pertain to this particular chapter. Every chapter will have that. I've gone out and looked at different supplemental material to kind of help add to your understanding. So we'll do a review of that. Then we'll start talking about some of the different laws that pertain to the payroll function. So as I mentioned, this first chapter can be a little bit dry because we do go through talking about what those laws are, those regulations that pertain to payroll. So two different types of laws that we have: fair labor laws and tax laws, and I'll go through in more detail about what that exactly means. Another little video just to kind of break up the day that talks about some of those laws in more detail. Then we are going to get into specifics of some of these laws. In particular, you see a lot of acronyms here. You're going to get familiar with a lot of acronyms in this class. any class that deals with tax is going to have a lot of acronyms. So the Civil Rights Act of 1964, we'll talk a little bit about what that is and how it pertains to the payroll function. ADEA, which is the Age Discrimination and Employment Act. The ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. FPR, WORA, some of these are really long. Which federal, I can't even remember what the words are. That one pertains to child support enforcement. IRCA, FMLA, USERRA, ERISA, and ACA. I know I'm going through those fast. Don't worry. I don't expect you to know what they are. We'll go through them one by one in our slides. Then I do have a short activity that I want you to do. You're going to pick one of those laws, and you're going to do a little bit of extra research on it. Only one of them. You don't have to do the extra research on all of them, but we'll, and I'll go through that when we get a little bit closer to it. So let's start out, and hopefully our volume works. So, any questions before we get started? Okay.
Our job here in payroll is to pay all Adams County employees. It's a very daunting task. It really is our job to be the last person to check your paycheck to make sure everything's accurate. Some months are more difficult than others, depending on what kind of projects we have going on, whether it's the audit time, W-2 time, those ones are pretty challenging. W-4s, direct deposits, just their new hire information is announced, but then we'll have the retros throughout the month, the termination paperwork to pay attention to. Each day is something different. We have to make sure that you're taxed properly. We have garnishments, levies, child supports that come out. And I think a lot of people do have a misconception that, you know, we only have a monthly payroll, so what do we do the rest of the month? And they don't realize that we have a ton of things to do all month long. We have about 1,900 employees, and last year we paid about $113 million in gross wages and about $30 million in taxes. So our number one goal is the accuracy of the paychecks, because money is very personal to everyone, and so it's very important to us to get everyone paid accurately. I feel like we're making such an impact on the employees just because of the fact that they are working to pay their bills and to have fun in life. So I feel like if we don't do our job well and accurately, that will impact them. People's money is important to them, and I want to make sure that we pay them correctly. When we have a quiet payday, that's when it's probably the most rewarding, because then we know that there's no questions on the checks. It's not just the push of a button to push a check through the system. It takes a lot of work in prepping and processing. It's not just cut me a check and it's done. It's a process. Process of it, I guess, is giving yourself enough time to do those checks and rechecks and triple checks and everything, just to be sure we have it correct and we do hit that way. In payroll, there really is no room for error. It's a lot of people and a lot of little details to check in such a small window. And during payroll week, we want our focus to be that we're getting all those checks and things looked at before you get your check. We catch a lot of the little things to have that human eye looking at it. It catches any errors that technology may not. When you have something that just clicks and just works and everything kind of flows through how it's supposed to, it's the most amazing feeling, because if you're off, goodness, by 2 pennies, those 2 pennies can give you a headache for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, even a day sometimes. So when things work, it makes life a lot easier. If you like numbers, it's a lot about the numbers, but what's different for us is it's a lot about the people and the employees, and it's about helping them, and that's what makes us a little bit different. It really takes all of us to get it all done. Everyone is on the same page as far as the importance of getting their payroll out. It's been extremely nice coming to work with the team like that. The most rewarding is the connections that we have, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. When you get those people that say thanks for paying, that always makes it more fun, a little bit more rewarding.
So this is obviously an example of a payroll department that is part of a city. So this would be a public as opposed to a private type of organization. They talked about how they got 1,900 employees that they process payroll for, and a big emphasis on accuracy and attention to detail. For those of you who have received a paycheck in the past or currently receive a paycheck, do you look at your paycheck when you get it? Do you look at the number? Even if it's the same amount every single time, you look at it and you have an idea of how much you're expecting to receive in your paycheck. And I will say that payroll is one of those fields where if there is an error, somebody will definitely find it. And if it's an error that's not in the employee's favor, the employee will let you know pretty quickly. If something is off or doesn't seem right, eventually those other errors as well, those errors that are in the employee's favor will also be picked up on at some point. So that attention to detail and the need for accuracy, the need for multiple sets of eyes looking at the information as it goes through the system is really important. They talked as well about how it's a process, and it's not just about preparing paychecks, and that's something that will become really obvious to you as we go through the class, because it's not just about payday. For the employee, it's just about payday, right? Getting their paycheck. But for the payroll department, it's not just payday. Yes, payday is important, and processing those payroll checks is a big part of the job, but also there are lots of other parts of the job as well. So because of all the regulations that are in place pertaining to the payroll function, there are lots of other requirements. You have a lot of reports that you have to put together for different federal and state agencies, and there are deadlines for all of those reports. There are end of the quarter reports that have to be put out. There are end of the year reports that have to be put out. Also, the payroll function works very closely with the accounting department in any organization, and so the accounting department has their own set of deadlines as well, and so payroll will provide information to accounting and different reports, and so when that feeds into the accounting system, there are lots of different various due dates and time restrictions for those as well. So it's not just about preparing the paychecks. That's obviously a very important part of it, but there's a lot more to it than that. They also, another thing I just wanted to point out, they talked about if you like numbers, it's a great profession, but you also probably need to like people, because you'd be working with people very closely as well, not just within your department, but throughout the organization as well. Now, for payroll, there are lots of different options. Like I said, this is an example of a city payroll department. So you can imagine, City of Ankeny has a payroll department. City of Ames has a payroll department. City of Des Moines has a payroll department. But also different the states have their own payroll functions as well. Counties have their own payroll functions. And then also every private organization, every private company has some sort of payroll function. Even if it's a very small company, it may outsource that payroll function. It may hire somebody, some other company to prepare it for them, but they have a payroll responsibility as well. So every organization that's out there that has employees has some sort of payroll function. So it's ubiquitous throughout every single organization that you come into contact with. Questions or comments about the video or anything? Are you, so those of you who are in here, well, that's everybody that's in here, is there anybody taking this class that you're taking it because you think you might want to get into payroll? Yeah? Okay. What is it about payroll then that interests you? Okay. Yeah. Excellent. Sure, absolutely. Well, there's a lot of demand for the payroll function, both within organizations and as an outsourced employee. So I know we're told by our recruiters continuously that payroll continues to be one of the more in-demand fields in the accounting realm. So that's great. I'm glad that you're interested in that. All right, so let's take a look. Let's start looking at some of these slides. We'll get into the crux of this particular chapter. All right, make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so chapter 1. Again, we're going to go through a bunch of laws that affect employers in the different payroll operations. It's a highly regulated area, meaning there are lots of different laws that govern how payroll is done and how what those deadlines are for the payroll function as well. So you can imagine, because you're dealing with people's money and making sure that employees get paid on time, that there would be a lot of rules put in place to govern that. So that's why we're going to go through a lot of these laws. We're also going to look at the different record-keeping requirements that may be included in the laws. So what types of records have to be maintained or submitted at different times throughout the year. We're also going to look at employment procedures that are followed within the Human Resources Department. Now, this is not a Human Resources class, but just like with the Accounting Department, where payroll works very closely with the Accounting Department, payroll also works very closely with the Human Resources Department. So it's good to get an idea of what Human Resources does and what their responsibilities are. We're going to talk about some of the different personnel records that businesses will use and the different types of information that we have for those. And then we're going to talk about two types of records in particular that we're going to be using throughout the semester. And these are payroll records. So the payroll register and the employee earnings record are. And like I said, you're going to become very familiar with those two records throughout the semester. So we're going to get just kind of a little introduction to them here in chapter 1. So as I had mentioned, payroll profession, we've got a requirement to comply with a lot of regulations, and payroll professionals, especially those who want to go into management, need to have an advanced knowledge in the area of payroll. Now as I had mentioned, it's a very highly in-demand area, and there are opportunities right from the entry level up through management. And there are a couple of different certifications that individuals can pursue if they're interested in getting into payroll that can make them even more marketable. And I'll talk a little bit about those as well. They're associated with this American Payroll Association. So average salary for a manager as they indicate here, $88,750. Now that's just an average. That would be a nationwide. It would depend upon the area that you're in. Obviously, more urban areas are going to be a bit higher. Des Moines tends to be about at the national average for a lot of salaries. So a managerial type position, $88,750. Average for payroll clerks, and that would be like an entry level type of position, would be about $45,000. That's about what we find from our recruiters. It's actually been a little bit higher than that we've seen as well, like 45 to 50,000. But for an entry level position, that's not too bad. That's, and that would be like with your associate's degree with maybe a payroll certificate. That is what that type of salary, what you could be approximately be looking at. A lot of professionals will be members of this American Payroll Association. So the APA, it's a professional organization for individuals who work in the payroll function. And I'm going to bring up hold on here. So payroll.org is the website for, and it used to be, I guess it's still called I still refer to it American Payroll Association, but they merged with this Global Payroll Management Institute and have just become payroll.org. So like any professional organization, they cater to individuals within that profession. The American Payroll Association, or this payroll org, also has membership, and with that membership would come the opportunity to register for different classes, register for different certifications, take part in seminars and different types of educational opportunities, certifications. So a couple of the certificates that I alluded to, one is the Fundamental Payroll Certificate. The other is the Certified Payroll Professional Certificate. So let's talk real quickly about this Fundamental Payroll Certificate, because we actually, DMAC offers a class that is geared toward individuals who are interested in this certificate and obtaining it. It's a 2-credit class. It's one, if you're in the specialist program, the accounting specialist program, you have some electives that you are required to take, and this is one of the options for the electives, is this particular class. And I have had a lot of students that have gone on to successfully take this exam and then work in payroll. This is not required for anybody to work in payroll. It's not required at DMAC. It's not a requirement even of that course that's taught, but it's one of those options that's out there if you wanted to put some letters behind your name, right? So if you wanted to, you've got, it would show that you've got a certification in an area. So this is open to everybody who wishes to demonstrate just a baseline of payroll competency. There is an exam that's required with this. Most of the individuals who take this exam, they are entry-level payroll professionals, or they may work in some supporting role in payroll. So maybe they're not actually working in payroll, but they're working in sales. There's sales opportunities with payroll companies, because if you're in sales, you're going to try and get different clients. So if you're working for a large payroll processing company and you're working in the sales department, you go out and you try to recruit different clients and different customers for your products. So sales professionals, systems analysts, so those who work in payroll software, and payroll service providers, so client representatives. So this is an entry-level type of certification. You do not have to be a member in order to register to take the exam. This is just one of those things that if you are wanting to work in payroll, this is something that would set you apart from other individuals, this certification. So the exam, so they show the dates here. It's one of those, so you have to register for the exam, and there are certain open dates for it. So they've got fall and spring dates here. Again, I just want to kind of introduce you to the idea of this. There are preparation classes that you can pay for the exam. I've had students take that payroll certification class through DMAC, and that's really all the preparation that they needed. Was they were able to then sit for the exam and successfully take it. So let me see if I can find if there are any other requirements. So they've got, if that's something that you were interested in, I've got, I think I have a link in Canvas to this website. Now, if you have been working in the payroll professional, another certification that they offer is this Certified Payroll Professional certificate. So this is for somebody with extensive payroll knowledge and experience. You have to have, the payroll professional has been practicing for at least 3 years out of 5 years preceding the date of the exam. That means that if you sat for this particular exam today, over the last 5 years, you have to have spent at least 3 of those years working in payroll. So this is for more advanced certification, and a lot of managers will sit for this exam. Again, this is not a requirement, but it's one of those things that for individuals who have it on their resume, it sets them apart from other people in the field. So payroll professional has to have been employed in the practice. There are different types of criteria for what they've been working in. So what they have to have been doing is they've got like 3 different options. Payroll, let's see here. Oh, so different courses. They have to have taken different courses as well through this, through the American Payroll Association. So again, I just show you these things to give you an overview of the American Payroll Association, or I guess payroll org now as they call it, and the certifications that they offer. You can sign up to get like, they've got news, so like different, here, federal news. So IRS releases drafts of 2026 forms W-2 and W-2C. So every year the IRS will issue new tax forms and new tax forms, new reporting forms, and this year they've just released the 2026 Form W-2. So here's the draft of what the 2026 will look like. Now this will pertain to tax year 2025. So these are the tax forms that will be received, or actually this would be the following year. So things like that. If you wanted to, stay updated on, we just had this huge new tax bill that was passed, the OBBA, One Big Beautiful Bill Act, that has a lot of new requirements and new regulations attached to it. So a couple of things maybe you've heard of, like the no tax on tips that passed. So if you are an employee who is receiving tips, and if you meet certain criteria, so it's not just everybody who receives tips, but you have to be in like a tipped profession and your income has to be below a certain level, there's no income tax on tips that are received up to a certain amount. I think it's $25,000. That's brand new. That just started. So that's a big change, and that's going to cause a lot of reporting changes that payroll professionals are going to have to become familiar with. In addition, they just passed no tax on overtime. So again, if you meet the criteria and you work overtime and get paid for overtime, it has to, your income has to be under a certain level. And I think it was like, don't quote me on it because I don't know specifically, like 150,000, since it's so new. I don't know the specifics of it. But if it was under a certain level and you receive overtime pay, there's no income tax on that overtime. Now there's still going to be Social Security and Medicare tax on it, on both of those items. But that's a huge change. And that's going to cause a lot of, it's going to cause the payroll departments to have to change how they do things and how they report those different types of income. So this W-2 should, let's see, take into account, let's see, and maybe it doesn't. Maybe it doesn't yet. One would ordinarily see a spot where it would separate out non-taxable tips and non-taxable overtime. So I don't see that here. Oh, Treasury tipped occupation code. So that's a new box. That 14B, that's a change. So anyway, just kind of an example of some of the things that they keep members apprised of. And you don't have to be a member. Obviously, you can just go to this site and take a look at some of these different articles. I don't know if there's anything else here. Different, like if they change withholding tables and things like that, it would be listed. So it's a way for professionals to stay up to date on changes within the field. Let's see. All right, so that's the American Payroll Association, which, as we just saw, they merged with another organization. So payroll.org is the name of the organization now. I've been calling it American Payroll Association forever, so it's hard for me to change my thinking on that. Another thing that that organization does is they set a code of ethics for the payroll profession. So this is something that, and this is in your book. Let's get back to this real quick. There are 8 different points to this code of ethics, and I will go through these because this is something that you'll want to become kind of familiar with. So this code of ethics, obviously a code of ethics, it's not, you're not going to get arrested if you violate the, well, depends on what you do. You might get arrested depending upon how you, what else, if you violate a law as well as the code. But the code of ethics is there to help guide professionals in the field to do the right thing, right? So we'll go through some of these, each of these points here. So the first one, to be mindful of the personal aspect of the payroll relationship between employer and employee. That means that obviously this is it's a private relationship between the employee and the payroll department, those who maintain that very personal information. The employee doesn't want everybody knowing how much they make. They don't want everybody knowing what their address is, what their phone number is, who their spouse is, what their marital status is. The payroll department is privy to very personal information about each employee. And so it's important for the payroll professional to understand the importance of keeping that information private. So also to ensure that harmony is maintained through constant concern for the payroll professional's fellow employees. So to work professionally with your fellow professional employee, your fellow payroll employees, as well as employees throughout the organization, right? To maintain that harmony. Number 2, to strive for perfect compliance, accuracy, there's that word again, accuracy, and timeliness of all payroll activities. Obviously, perfection is not, you cannot attain perfection all the time, but the idea is to strive for that, That is what your goal is to be perfect and make sure that everything is submitted on time, all reports are submitted on time, employee payroll is accurate, and to make sure that everything, that you're following all compliance requirements. To keep abreast of the state of the payroll art with regard to developments in payroll technologies. So they refer to it as a payroll art, but just staying up to date with different technologies that are available for the processing of payroll, as well as keeping abreast of all developments in the payroll profession, which that American Payroll Association website would certainly help with, because they keep their members up to date on all changes. Current with legislative developments and actions on the part of regulatory bodies insofar as they affect payroll. Again, making sure that you are up to date on what those regulations are. Federal regulations as well as state regulations. If you're in a state where cities have payroll requirements, there are cities that have income taxes. There are certain states where counties have payroll taxes. There are certain states where school districts have payroll taxes. So I have a friend who lives in Ohio. They have state income taxes, county income taxes, city income taxes. They've got, obviously federal income taxes. So they've got all that. Those payroll departments have to be familiar with a lot of information for different jurisdictions just in their immediate area. So if you're a payroll professional, to abide by the code of ethics, you need to stay current on what all of those what any of those changes are at every level where you have regulatory requirements. Maintain the absolute confidentiality of payroll within the procedures of the employer. Again, making sure that you're not sharing personal information about employees with those who are not entitled to have that information. Refrain from using association activities for one's personal self-interest or financial gain. That would pertain just to those individuals who are members of the American Payroll Association. So you're not going to conferences just to solicit business, that sort of thing. To take as one's commitment the enhancement of one's professional abilities through the resources of the American Payroll Association. So making sure that you're using all of their resources in order to maintain as well as improve your own payroll skills, and to support one's fellow payroll professionals both within and outside of your own organization, your own employer. So just making sure that you provide support to if you have information that other payroll professionals could find useful, that you're sharing that information with those individuals. So this is their code of ethics, the 8 points. Like I said, obviously you're not going to get arrested. Well, I suppose if you violate number 5, you probably could get arrested. But this is just the code of ethics that those in the payroll profession are expected to abide by. Questions right now?